You're listening to the RN Mentor, a podcast designed to document and bring you the work and experience of some of the most influential nurses in our profession. We will be sitting down and having a discussion with the leaders of today's nursing world as they share their work, how they navigate their nursing path, and their views on the future of the profession. My name is Ali Tayeb. I am a registered nurse, United States Navy veteran, a Jonas Veterans Healthcare Scholar, and your host for the RN Mentor. Hello and welcome back to the RN Mentor podcast. I have the great pleasure of having Dr. Antiqua Smart with me this week. Dr. Smart is a dually board certified family nurse practitioner and advanced public health nurse. Dr. Smart received her Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree from Southern University and A&M College. A Master's of Nursing degree from Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, a Doctor of Nursing Practice degree from the University of Alabama. In addition to her role as a clinician, Dr. Smart is an experienced nurse educator, healthcare consultant, health policy advocate, and entrepreneur. As an academician, she has co-authored several nursing textbook chapters, published articles in peer-reviewed nursing journals, and is a certified peer reviewer for the Journal of the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. Dr. Smart is currently a Board of Directors member for the Louisiana Association of Nurse Practitioners, in which she serves as a Health Policy Committee member, Political Action Committee co-chair, a medical advisory board member for NICE Healthcare in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and maintains professional memberships in several nursing organizations. Dr. Smart currently works as a full-time assistant professor in the graduate nursing program at Loyola University in New Orleans. She is also the owner, principal healthcare consultant, social media content strategist at Health Consultology, e-resolutions, and the owner, creator, blogger at Ask Me, Dr. Smart DNP. Welcome to the show, Dr. Smart.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone.
Fantastic to have you. I have been following you for a while through social media. I had the pleasure of hearing you talk at another event not too long, maybe about a month or two ago. So happy to have you on the podcast, and looking forward to talking and picking your brain a little bit about some of the things you do. Yeah, you have your feelers out in a few places, so I want to pick your brain on those.
All right, great. I'm so excited to be here. So pick away.
So I'll start with my first question is, how did you get started in the world of nursing? What was your motivation to get into the world of nursing?
I have actually wanted to be a nurse since I was probably about age 9. I have always had an affinity and love for the health sciences, mainly, biology and just the way the human body worked. I remember in elementary school, we had to do this project in which we literally learned about every single body system, but the teacher had us outline our body, and it was in construction paper, and we literally would put the diagram of what all of the organ systems looked like. And I just thought that was fascinating. And even as a child, I had my own kind of bouts with having to go to the physician often. Particularly, I had a lot of digestive system issues. And so it was at that age that I realized I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, probably at about age 8 or 9. And so I just fell in love with the health sciences. And I really, though, kind of honed in, particularly when I knew that I had the interest to enter the health sciences field. Of course, everybody thinks, doctor, you should be a doctor. I decided to go to a medical magnet high school, where it was a high school in which they allowed us during particularly our junior year, to actually go to the hospitals and also clinics. So we would actually leave, like our fourth and fifth hour or period, we would leave campus, and that's where we would go. And but of course, during the other years, like your ninth grade, 10th grade, 12th grade, there's other, medical terminology. There was a Health Occupations Students of America, HOSA. I think it may still exist. So there were lots of opportunities for us to be immersed and get experience with whether or not that's something we wanted to pursue. And so, of course, okay, great. Well, yeah, I'll start along with, the whole doctor thing. But it really was once I got into my junior year where I realized, hey, it's the nurses who actually are, there and spend the most time with the patient. And while I enjoy the science of it, it's very important for me to make those connections with patients and their families. And so that's actually why I chose nursing over medicine. And it kind of really solidified those things. Like I'd always thought about nursing and knew nursing, but then kind of you get persuaded by others, go for this, go for that. And there's other ways, which I learned as well during high school, of being a quote unquote doctor besides being a medical doctor or a physician. So that was really kind of where my fascination of nursing and healthcare began. For me, it began rather early. It's not this isn't a second career for me. This was something that I always wanted to do, even though I did at one point contemplate whether or not I would go the physician route, and quickly changed my mind, especially once I got into my freshman year, and I kind of really realized, before I even got started, like, wait, am I going to listen to what I really want to do ultimately, or what others are telling me to do? And I kind of just had the confirmation. I was like, this isn't what I need to be doing. And so I actually started a summer semester biology pre-med at Xavier University in New Orleans. And I was like, I'm supposed to be in nursing. I don't even need to start this route. I know that I will likely want to change areas. And with the medical, being a physician, once you learn a specialty, that is it. And I like variety in my life. So as you could hear, probably from my bio, I kind of get sometimes a little bit bored, or I like to, I find it almost as a stress relief, but I like to be able to use all of the different gifts and be quote unquote balanced. So while there is that very much, I function mostly with my left side of my brain, which is the more analytical. I also like to indulge in some of the creative abilities that I may have. And I remember always when I took those type of tests, I still end up being the one that's whole brained. I of course, it depends on what I'm doing. When I'm functioning in my clinician role as a nurse practitioner, well, naturally I'm using my left side a little bit more than my right, but you still need to use that right to kind of hone in when it comes to the interpersonal communication that you're having with your patient.
Yeah, that's very interesting you bring that up, because I've had a few guests and even some of my students that come from a sort of a artistic, creative background. And sometimes they are second career nurses, but they've had that component to them. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I do a little bit of the arts and stuff myself. And although I do like the analytical side of the world, I don't think I could survive on the analytical side of the world, right? You need to have this other outlet.
Have to have the outlet, right?
Yeah, right. I agree.
The outlet is key. And I think that's kind of where the writing part of me, not from just academic or scholarly writing, but the kind of the blogging part, kind of how that comes in. And really, I've been able to be more active with just trying to grow things with my social media platform and being consistent with that than sitting down and being able to like blog on my own website, really, because life kind of took an immediate 180 once I kind of started with the whole journey with that. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's I always like to I always like to talk to individuals who have this other side to them, because it is so fascinating, and you don't realize the people's creative sides and how they can do some of the things that they do, because we don't see that aspect of them. So I think that's fantastic.
Right.
Now you mentioned you decided you were going to go the nursing route once you knew that was your path. How was your path in the nursing program going into your first nursing role? How was that process for you?
Well, for me, once I made the decision that I was not going to, go the biology pre-med route, I decided to enroll at Southern University. It was a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program, because I knew for me that likely I would be going for furthering, my education through graduate studies.
Oh, okay.
So it just made more sense at the time for me. I also had some scholarship money, but I'm also blessed in that, both of my parents, I'm an only child. And so both of my parents, they're retired now, but they were working. And, as far as college education and paying for it was not going to that wasn't going to be an issue. I just, my dad was like, hey, you're either going to work or you're going to school. So one or the other, but you're going to do something. So, but I mean, that was not, that was never the issue. I've always been pretty much, driven, and I've always loved school. So for me, that's why I chose to jump straight into the traditional 4-year Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program. And then I was 18. So I was young. I was at that traditional age. I wanted to experience some facets of college life. I did join a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, while I was in college. So that's kind of why I decided to take that route. And I also have always been somewhat of what I like to call a futurist. So I like to kind of, I went to the library, I did all my research, and I kind of would see where nursing, but also just healthcare in general, where things were going. And the thing that I could see with nursing and what I knew was that a lot of the roles that I eventually wanted to do in nursing required a bachelor's degree or higher. So my plans were made from I started with the end goal and worked my way backwards. So
Makes sense. Yeah. Now, was there any kind of influence along the way for you as far as going into a graduate program, or was that just your own drive that said, you know what, this is what I want to do and this is the process for me?
That was my drive. I originally, had thought about because I started my first years in nursing were in maternal-newborn nursing. So I always loved babies. But, I knew that I wanted to eventually work in an outpatient setting and liked public health and kind of was drawn to the community settings. And so I was like, well, being a neonatal nurse practitioner, and I realized it's like, I can't do all this with these little itty babies, just seeing one die, because I did work as a nurse tech. So I did that while I was in nursing school, undergrad. And I worked in the NICU. And so that's kind of when I knew I was like, I don't think I'd want to do this forever. And then I saw some of the things that kind of, with the FNP role or being a family nurse practitioner, what that would allow you to do. And I saw it really as an extension of my nursing. So, as we like to say, it's not really practicing medicine. It is advanced practice nursing. There's, a medical model that we follow, but very much, instead of calling, having to call the doctor for an order, I can I have the legal authority to actually, order what it is that I think that my patient may need. So it's just kind of takes out the middleman is how I would say it for things that are more simplistic. Now, of course, I'm definitely not against the physician role. I have physicians myself. But there is a role that advanced practice nurses play particularly within the primary or their preventative care of individuals throughout the lifespan. And so I think I just kind of really like that whole prevention and promotion, and kind of helping people to stay well, and that also the patient education teaching that is still very much involved with the advanced practice nursing role. So for me, not necessarily. I knew that I wanted to be a nurse practitioner, and I went for it. I've always been the one that, for some reason or another, people come to me asking questions, and it's like, I only found out because I kind of did the research. It's not like I necessarily, there are no other nurse practitioners in my family. I did realize actually before I was about to complete or graduate my nurse practitioner program, that my grandmother, actually with my great, I think 3 greats grandmother, was basically a midwife during the Civil War time.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, and that was, I'm a descendant of slaves. So, of course, that whole thing, I'm still living in the South and all of that. But I realized it's like, oh, well, that's where my love of babies or my healthcare kind of came from. You realize that things are generational and you didn't even really know. So I would say that, they, of course, I came after them, and my grandmother died when my father was 9. So I never really, this is my paternal side of the family tree. So I didn't get to meet her. I didn't know her. And my grandfather died when I was like 2 or 3. So he would come over, we would have our granddaddy and daughter time, but I don't remember that because I was a baby. So they were my role models, but I did not know that at the time. I would say, kind of that guiding force of what I kind of am doing in healthcare, but no one in the immediate, the generation with it where I am in, or like maybe just the generation before, had actually been anything involved with nursing or healthcare. So I'm that type of person. When I get a knowing, I go for it. I've realized though that some of that, I guess, I don't know whether to really call it ignorance is bliss, but some of that that drive that I kind of had of like, well, I can do it. Anything is possible, kind of faded away in recent years when I kind of had some serious reality checks with really just how, certain struggles and challenges can happen. And so for me, I would say professionally, everything was textbook, and it was like a fairy tale ending until about when I was about probably age 30. And this was actually my first stint at being in academia. But at the time I was also trying to pursue my doctoral degree because I, again, always knew that I wanted to teach nurse practitioners. So, I have now, of course, granted, there have been professors throughout my career in which I saw certain things that they were doing and knew that it was possible. And one of the things with attending an HBCU, or historically Black college and university, because that's what Southern University is. We're actually the only one that actually is a system, because we have several different universities across the state. And so that was intentional for me, because I always went to schools or was in different environments where I was the only one of color. And so I wanted to, take those African-American, literature and study courses as part of the arts part of our bachelor's degree. And that's kind of one of the things in nursing. You not only learn the science, but you also have to take the art or your literature classes. And so that was very important for me, was attending an HBCU. And of course, most of my family, now that is a tradition, most of my family, the ones that have gone to college, including my mother, who has a master's degree. She's a retired educator. She taught, it used to be termed special education, but now it's exceptional student services. And so, she got both of her degrees from there. Several cousins, my dad attended that university. So, that was a family decision, attending that particular university. But as far as healthcare directly, and the path that I took when I knew I was going to, the next route or the next step, which was graduate school, that it was an inner knowing, and I just went with it, and I took each step as it went. So,
yeah, that's a great story. It sounds like from a generational perspective, and even your mom, everybody had a little bit of a influence over you being where you are today. So that's fantastic.
Oh, definitely my parents. I mean, my dad worked. He's also a Army vet, U.S. Army in Vietnam, actually. Oh, wow. So and he spent the remainder of his career working at ExxonMobil now at the refinery. So at one of the largest petrochemical plants probably in the world. But they're based here in Baton Rouge, and my grandfather, that's where he worked. But yes, so definitely they instilled my core values, about, hey, if it's something that you want to do, go for it. And as far as working, that work ethic, that comes from them, definitely. But as far as direct role models with nursing, that mainly came from, when I was in school, and the influences of having or forming relationships, or informal mentorships with professors as I went along. So that's where that influence came from.
Yeah, as you're talking about this, it's sort of popping into my head of how do you think having an active mentor in your life versus individuals that sort of, just influence, and you did a lot of the legwork from the sound of it. How do you think it would have been different for you? Just because I hear this story a lot of, there's a lot of, individuals who look at other people, but they don't have that active mentor or sponsor individual in their life. How do you think things may have been different, or why do you think nursing perhaps lacks that in general?
That's a really good question, and something that I've found myself recently as I listen, I'm on Clubhouse, and I had to kind of disconnect because it can be addictive. And I've got too much going on right now, seriously. So there's too many irons in the fire right now. But when I get a chance, if it's something that I know that someone tells me, hey, look, we're going to be on, this is what it's about. And as I hear, now that I'm getting kind of reintroduced again to academia, because I've done it adjunct for a while, but there's a difference between being adjunct and a difference between when you enter, full-time academia again. It's kind of a mental reset again. And so, I really have had to think about it. And, everybody talks about how important it is, but I kind of, in some ways, I've never really had that, one or two like specific mentors. And I feel like, did I miss out on something? In a way, I kind of feel sad about it because, and even for this role, re-entering or just being in academia again, I have always been the one. And I think, though, in a way, that's just the way that it was designed to be. I personally am a Christian, and so God is the center of my life. And I feel that, he has our book chapters written, our book of life is written before we even actually enter into, we come in the physical form. We're spirit more than anything. And so I think the way he designed it for me to be is to be the one that's quote unquote the trailblazer, because I always find myself being the mentor. And so I think not having the mentor, the direct mentor, and just these influencers are my supporting cast, as I'd like to call them. It actually has empowered me, or is the reason why I'm so willing to mentor and really want to be hands-on with others and tell them, look, this is what worked for me. This is what didn't work. I think it's what helps me to really be able to advise and guide others. And I do wish that, mentorship was more readily available in nursing. I unfortunately had experienced, particularly within the last decade of my, of my life and within my nursing experience, more of the that incivility part. And that's the part that hurts. And I think that's the reason why mentorship can't take off, is because it's that incivility of, nurses eating their young and still having that mindset, and it's still lingering. And, or even when, you decide to quote unquote leave the bedside, because I feel like you really never leave the bedside. You're still in some ways, it may be from a indirect perspective, but you're still taking care of patients. Your patient is just different. Right. It's not a patient that's in a hospital setting. It is a cohort of, nurse practitioner students in my case. Or, I just do still practice one day a week. So, of course, naturally, that is me providing direct care. But I mean, I think that nurses sometimes are not willing to be open-minded. And really we don't have enough progressive thinkers like myself. And I tend to be a very progressive thinker. I'm quiet about my progressiveness. So some people, you hear them and they're all on social media with it and you know where they stand. I don't always like to necessarily give my opinion because I kind of like to see what others are thinking. And I don't want my opinions to persuade or dissuade what someone else thinks or believes. Because I believe in truly being a non-judgmental person. But I think that's really what's hurt us. But hopefully, and again, this starts with our nursing leaders. And I would say within academia where, you and me are, and that's why that was my drive to get back into academia full time. It kind of happened when I didn't think it was going to happen. So that's why I say life kind of took a 180. I was like, okay, well, let me just kind of start these entrepreneurial things that I knew I said I wanted to do one day, but never got around to doing them. I have this window of opportunity right now, so let me do it. And then bam, you kind of one of those things where you listen to what God tells you to do. Like, okay, look, this is what you need to be doing. This is what I'm telling you to do. And then he blesses you with more. He opens up more windows or doors of opportunity. And that's kind of what happened to me, in 2020. So a lot of things kind of that I've always wanted to do all happen at once, literally. But, I do think that it takes people we need more progressive thinkers and more forward thinking, and people that are not afraid to change the dynamics of what nursing needs to be, because things can't stay stagnant. Change is inevitable. And nothing has taught us that more than this pandemic. And so you can't be so, hell-bent on one ideology or philosophy and let that hold you back, because that's kind of what it can do. From really making the positive change and then meeting, another generation of nurses. We've got the millennials that are here, and the things that worked for you and me, those aren't working. Even learning wise, that is not working for them. Doesn't mean that anything is wrong with them or the way that they learn. Each generation has something to learn from one another, right? But I think that's what is holding, that once we can iron out and get rid of that incivility that occurs in nursing, then more true mentorships, mentor-mentee, relationships can happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I've being a male in the nursing world, I've faced some issues throughout my career of I've had. I think I've said this on the podcast before. It must be a thing for me. That actually I did have somebody who was in a leadership role that blatantly said, I don't think men belong in nursing. And this is somebody who had been in nursing for, a number of years and I'm sure has had to work with men in nursing. And so that I think there's a whole component of nursing that we should be okay with changing nursing from the traditional textbook way of, as I'm doing air quotes here, right? I think we should be okay with changing how nursing is, because I don't think the core of nursing, of being patient-centered and holistic and all of those components, I don't think that's going to change. But I think the component of how we interact with one another and how we elevate each other in the roles that we're in and how we collaborate with each other, I think that's the piece I think we really need to rethink and reshape, because I don't think it's working for everybody. I'm sure it's working for some. I don't think it's working for everybody.
No, I completely agree with you on that. You couldn't have said that better. And, honestly, nursing needs to look like the patients that we take care of, right?
Right.
All of our patients are not Caucasian. All of our patients are not female.
Right.
All of our patients, they may have different religions. And speak different languages for that matter.
Yes.
Then nursing needs to look like that. Patients receive the best care and are actually willing to be more open with providers that they can relate to. That studies have proven that. And so when you have more nurses that are reflective of what the general population looks like, I think it only enriches the nursing profession, because every culture, every ethnicity, every religion, no matter what your what you identify as far as your gender or your sexuality, all of those things are who our patients are. And so we each can bring that into nursing, and it allows us to be able to that art that we talk about and that caring and compassion, June Watson, essence is the caring of nursing. All of that, all those things become more not just, theories, but we can put that into practice when we're able to relate more with one another, and most importantly, relate with our patients. And so I think that, yes, this is the time in which, there's this reset now, particularly within America, with everything that kind of has, I call it the racial reawakening, because the racial, it's always been there. And I've experienced it as a provider, from patients.
Right.
And then I've seen it subtly as a patient, from providers. But I think that this is the time. You're right. There's what was working, and that's why there are just so few that are able to reach certain levels or heights in their careers. It's not that we don't have things that come along that dissuade us or distract us, because I know the last 2 years now of my life has been been a nightmare. I had illness. I had a job in which I thought it was a job. The person didn't pay me, so I had to end up just walking away. And things that happened at a point in my career that I would have thought would have never necessarily happened or not happened almost 20 years in the game, and so, not that I would tell people not to work for a startup. I just think that's not really the goal. I just think it just kind of shows you the change in the times, and just honestly, the lack of integrity that of people that are in healthcare now. And I don't necessarily mean from a provider standpoint. Again, healthcare and nursing, it's a business at the end of the day. Right. And that's really how things are functioning. And that's what you see. So that's what you see in your leaders. That's what you see in people that may be healthcare administrators, particularly like with me that work in a clinic. And so you're actually having more dances, so to speak, with those administrators than say maybe if you are working in the hospital setting. You may only see, middle management. But those things are very, I think, important. And I think that's what we need to focus on, and more truly working and being supportive of one another, whatever those endeavors may be. I'm hoping that maybe, as one, the torch is passed on, as one group, retires, or some that may actually be deciding to leave nursing altogether right now because of the conditions
Right.
of the pandemic. I hope that the good traits can be passed on to the next, and
Yeah.
that we can get some change.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that actually, back when around March of 2020, one of my first things, actually, I put it out in social media. I said, I wonder how many nurses will be leaving the profession of nursing, because one of the things that I think we don't do a really good job at in preparing nurses for the profession is talk about the business side of things, right? And I
Right.
think so many people have gotten it over the last year, or have gotten it throughout their professional careers, that they stepped into, including myself, I should say. I left 2 organizations because their end goal was no longer compatible with me as an individual.
Right.
So when they are businesses, and they do function as businesses, and a lot of them are providers and nurses who are in administrative roles, who have to run that business, and the decisions are made from a business perspective, which is sometimes good or bad.
Right.
I'm not at those tables, and I don't make those decisions.
Right.
But they are decisions that are made, and it's not always compatible with nursing, the profession of nursing, and
Right.
how we think about patient care, and while they're thinking about the
The bottom
dollars.
line.
Yeah, the dollars, right?
Right.
So I think that that's an important thing, and I don't know if at what point we would introduce that. It's sort of like hey, by the way, this is a business, because we don't. I try to do a little bit of that in my leadership classes,
Mhm.
nursing leadership classes, but I don't think that until people are in it, or in a role where they have to make some of those decisions. Where, like I said, it soured the milk for me multiple times when I was in a role,
Likewise.
and in a meeting where I'm like, this is no longer working for me. I can't work for this organization, and I left.
That's been my decision too, ultimately, when I've decided to move on, or I've made the job hops that I've had to make, particularly over the last decade, which is something nurse practitioners tend to do. And I never understood why until, again, you're right. I think some things we just don't get until we're in the situation. But at the end of the day, for me, I still have a certain moral compass. And while I
Right.
understand very much, that their things are a business and certain things have to be done a certain way, I'm not willing to have whatever those business decisions be infringe upon something that I may not want to do, that is against what direction my moral compass is pointing.
Right. Right.
So those are decisions and reasons why I've left organizations as well. I'm just not going to. I've got to be able to sleep at night. So I'm
Exactly.
not going
Exactly.
to just run in, run out, to get a certain quotient of patients per quarter, and I don't believe I don't. That's like herding cattle, and I'm taking care of patients. And at the end of the day, yeah, this may be what you want to see, but what about my license? Because you're not. I've had 2 depositions back to back, actually, and nobody from administration or the you're like the CEO, none of them are even my collaborating positions, because I don't live in a full practice authority state, or I don't primarily practice, I should say, in a full practice authority state. They weren't in those depositions with those attorneys either. So at the end of the day, I have my license to look at. And, again, it's also, I have to remember, why did I go into this?
Right.
Because when you lose sight of that, yeah, you're going to be disappointed and frustrated and coming home disgusted and unhappy a lot of days. Because every day is not going to be pretty. Every shift ain't going to be smooth. But, yeah, I think that's kind of been my decisions as well. And it's hard, because I think that's the core of what you see now. It's so much of a business, and it can be conflicting with what we are taught as nurses, or the very reason why we decided to go into nursing anyway. And you're right. I think there's exposure on to a certain extent, or I should say introducing that side of nursing maybe in education a little earlier may be something that educators need to think about. But I do think it's not until you get into it. Like I get the rich discussions that you were talking about. We were kind of talking about earlier before the recording. I get that from my grad students because they're currently leaders, or they may be charge nurses, or again, they've been practicing nursing,
Right.
that they see that business side of it. So I think some of it they're not going to really relate to until they get, connected with and they're working for a particular healthcare organization, because every organization is a little bit different, right? Some show that a little bit more than others. So
I always tell my students when they're looking at policy, or they're looking at why this like decisions are being made or anything that's inputted, I always tell them follow the money, because there's always money involved, regardless
right.
of or good intentions, bad intentions, whatever the case may be. I always tell them follow the money, see where the money is flowing, where it's coming from, where it's going to. That will tell you really more than you need to know.
Right.
So, and it's unfortunate. It's a side of the healthcare that I wish didn't exist, but it does.
Right? But it does, and I get it. It has to, to an extent. I get it, but yeah, I think it's just become so gritty. It seems like it has negatively overshadowed things in the way that it definitely is putting a sour taste in the mouths of those of us that actually are not on the business side and that don't have input in some of the decisions. And that's why I think that it's important for, nurses, no matter, regardless of what level it is, if, really, decide, hey, does this particular organization, do they value my input?
Right.
Because I think it's important to make, it should be still that team philosophy. And if, I get it, somebody has to be the leader, but you as the staff nurse, I mean, you're the one that's actually implementing these policies that people are coming up with, then I think that you should be able to give some feedback, and at some point your decisions, a little bit of what you are doing or your decisions should be heard, I think that that's important.
Yeah, I agree. And it's I don't necessarily prescribe to the magnet designation. I think it's got its, there's again dollars involved with that. It's a magnet designation. So it's a business decision. It's less of a healthcare decision. But hospitals that operate under the same, without necessarily being magnet, but operate in that sort of forum where they get direct input from bedside, from every level of the healthcare worker that is in the organization. I think they do a better job at it than organizations that are more top down. So things like shared governance, and I'm fully on board with things like that. Like I said, I call this sort of the magnet model without necessarily being magnet, because it's doable. It's definitely doable. So thank you. I didn't. We're running almost out of time, but I want to give you time to talk about your entrepreneurship and your and sort of, I don't want to call it a side business. It's your creative side that you put time into. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, essentially for me right now, very much the entrepreneur hat is still new. And definitely there's things to be learned about it. Now, again, this kind of comes from also some input as far as on my mom's side of the family, but also my dad's side of the family. They, my grandfather, he was a full-time entrepreneur and had several different construction businesses, and, had, owned rental homes. And then I had another uncle who he kind of did this on the side, where he had several apartment buildings and owned things like that. So, there's certain, business savvy that I do have. But definitely entrepreneurship, it's one of those things. It's definitely a lot of risk involved. You're definitely putting your money out there before you necessarily see anything coming back in. And so for me right now, that's why I'm starting it slow, but also too, because I have other irons in the fire. I'm not, for me, I think at this particular phase, it was more important. I'm more focused on the building and the foundation of it. And that's what's still occurring right now, necessarily than making a lot of money right now. Now, I don't, honestly, I don't have time to do as much one-on-one service as I'd like, particularly because I'm, being back in academia full time. There's always a lot of committee meetings. I'm, restructuring and recreating everything as far as lectures and modules and basically the courses. And so I don't think students understand. I know y'all spend a lot of time studying, but we don't just, it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes y'all don't see. And so that's kind of what's taking up, or where most of my attention kind of now has to be focused. But I do, because I need that creative outlet. That's why I continue to build upon and try to be consistent with postings for on my social media content. And then also because that's kind of a little bit is a spinoff of what one of the services that I would offer for my my health consultology resolutions is basically I kind of saw this need where, hey, most, medium, small to medium practices or organizations, they don't really spend a lot of effort into social media. And that's really where advertisement is. It's not TV or print necessarily anymore. And and a lot of it is because they don't have time. They're focused on the practice part of it, but then also trying to run the business side of it. And so that's kind of where I felt that there would be a need, and that there before, of course, the pandemic hit, I did actually have some fillers out there, but understanding that most of the potential clients that I would be dealing with are, entrepreneurs themselves, and they're not part of a larger organization. The monies had to go other places. I get that, particularly those that actually have clinics. So that's just kind of a little bit about, what my ideas, and I found myself more of I probably at some point, I don't know how I'm going to strategize my consultation services, because initially I was doing them pretty much kind of for free, which again, we have to learn in nursing, time is money.
Time is money. Time is money. Definitely.
So, we don't have that business hat on. And I kind of was really doing that more so. Some of it was just kind of, as nursing, we tend to downplay our own, I guess, we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we do. But then also, I was a new business, and I felt like, hey, I also need to see, is this going to fit? Because I don't want to waste your time or my time, because I may not be the right consultant for you, and you may not necessarily be the best client for me. And so, I'll kind of figure out what I'm going to do a little bit more with that. Like I said, some of the stuff I've had to just put on pause. There's not enough hours in the day, but I do make time to kind of do my mini blogging on my social media pages, particularly Instagram. And a lot of that really, some people come up with their content like, oh, I spent all weekend doing my content for the whole week. I literally do my content. Sometimes I could be at an appointment. Like I start drafting, it just comes. And so I never, and sometimes it may be something I've seen on CNN, and I take and make a twist out of it, but from a healthcare provider perspective, or it could be something that's actually going on in my life. And I feel like, this is something that may help somebody else. So it's really an extension of me kind of being a kind of consultant, or kind of really just a point of contact for ensuring the health of healthcare providers. Because I've gone through burnout. I've been through the horrible job situations. And so just different things that I feel like, okay, especially now, a lot of people are feeling it if they weren't feeling it before. And just like, I'm here, I'm with you, I've understood it. This is what you may want to do. This is what you may not want to do. But things that I hope that little tidbits that I think are going to be helpful. And I eventually have some ideas of how I may monetize the blog, but I'm not going to, seek advertisement of something that I feel does not go with the brand,
Right.
if you know what I mean. So that's kind of where putting on that entrepreneurial hat, you have to think a little bit differently, but it is still very much part of nursing. And I think when we embrace it as such, what's your care plan for your business?
Right.
So, and when you embrace it in that way, then you're able to kind of, I think, flourish. So for me, I just believe in building, and they say if you build it, it'll come. And you hear some, of your people that are exclusively business and entrepreneurial people, they say that's kind of like a bunch of crap. I don't really believe that. If you spend enough time on something and you nourish it and you treat it, I believe in starting small as well. You have to start somewhere. And so I believe in incremental change and incremental impact. And again, that gives me time to figure out what's going to work and what isn't going to work. And I find that out early rather than spending money on, making some type of big, advertising or starting another service that isn't going to be, is going to be counter productive or not really, with my money or my time. So that's kind of just, what I'm doing with that. It's still really new, but I love the writing piece because that's where I like to express myself more through writing than talking. I'm very much an introvert. You cannot tell that from this interview. But I am in my head 24/7. Even when I sleep, I dream. So there's certain things that sometimes I see in dreams that I'm like, okay, wait, that's an idea. So I really prefer to be in my own head a lot. But I interact better with people more one-on-one than say bigger audiences, even though that's not something you really see. My students may not can't really see that. And, probably you as the audience members can't tell that. And even in my writing, because of how I express myself through my writing, which is why you don't see videos, you don't really don't see live. I am very much about writing and expression and speaking. And so, and again, those things take time because it takes editing. So that's how I prefer to express myself. I don't think the blogger is dead. I know vlogs and, everything visual is what's up. But I think that, people that like to write and speak, regular radio, talk radio, podcast, all those things are not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. That's one of the things I actually share with my students, and they don't always believe me, is I'm a huge introvert. So the fact that I started a podcast is it was very much out of my comfort zone.
Right.
But you step out there, and I always tell and I've had students come to me and say, oh yeah, I'm an introvert. That's why I don't really say much. And I say, it's a learned skill set, right? You just have to learn that you need to take the time and re-energize on your own. After you put out that energy, you got to recharge. And that's something that a lot of, I think, I have no idea what I'm talking about at this moment, but maybe some introverts have difficulty is they don't know how to recharge, so they don't put the energy out there in the first place. I think that might be the issue, because it does take a lot out of you, even especially in the world of Zoom or anything like that. This is all draining for us that identify as introverts.
Right.
So very true. And I appreciate your blogs and things. Actually, I follow you on Instagram and have for some time. And it's from a nursing perspective, it's refreshing for me because I know there's a lot of nurses out there who are identified as influencers, but they're primarily out there selling products, and that's perfectly fine because that's their brand. And that's how they decided to market themselves, and that's how they're making, they're putting food on the table. I appreciate your blog because I always think of people I like to follow and things like that is how are they adding value to my day, or how are they adding value to my profession? And I appreciate your blogs for that purpose, because you add value. For me personally.
I definitely don't want to. And people won't believe this, particularly at how involved or what's going on with my social media at this point. But I was kind of the anti-social media person. So for the longest, I really did not. I was I participated, but I didn't really, I wasn't playing in the field, so to speak. I wasn't a player. I was on the sidelines.
Right.
And so, because I didn't really like, particularly, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but when you hear from the traditionalists in nursing, that's not it. I don't know whether or not it always brings out the highlights of what nursing is. Right. And so I was very intentional, and that's the reason why you don't see photos and there's not a lot of selfies. I'm very intentional about my content because I don't want it to be about you seeing my face or my body or me advertising this or feeling like I'm trying to sell you something, because there's enough of that already. Right. What can I bring that's different? And so that's when I realized I have to be me, and I'm going to be me, and I'm going to stick to being me. And, some people will like it and others will unfollow. It is what it is. I feel like, maybe I'm reaching or speaking to, someone, and you just have to keep being consistent about it. And hopefully you will. You never know. I mean, a lot of my opportunities to speak on podcasts or whether it's been, lately we've had a lot of Zoom conferences, which I love because traveling is exhausting for me to be honest. That's how some of these opportunities honestly have happened because I decided and I was brave enough to put myself out there. So, it is about, trying to really, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's the season that I'm in right now in my life it's a consistent, I knew this and I knew that, but everything is kind of like starting anew because I'm in a new role. My entrepreneurial roles are new. Academia, it's been kind of one of the things on the back, but now it's the forefront. So there's more growth and development that needs to take place and nurturing there and less on the clinician side because I've reached the top of that. Yeah. So, I encourage everyone, everybody is not trying to plug myself to necessarily for you to follow me or anything like that. But everything about social media is not always bad. And if you think it is, then think about what you can do to make it good because it's a powerful medium. It really is. I don't think that anything really right now, especially with the pandemic, right. It's a powerful medium of getting whatever your product may be out there. Or your intellectual product or your service or whatever it is that you give, you've got to, it's one of those games you got to play.
100% agree. Right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Smart. I loved having you on. I hope we stay connected and you're welcome back on the show anytime. Awesome. So I appreciate you giving your time and I wish you the best with your academic role, your new full-time academic role. Congratulations on that. And I look forward to see where your entrepreneurial tasks or businesses, however it ends up being. I hope it becomes a moneymaker for you at some point.
At some point. That's the plan. That's my plan and my prayer. I should say. But I won't rush it. One thing at a time. As my father always said, Rome wasn't built in a day. So. One thing at a time, one step at a time. Absolutely. It's not necessarily a race. It's just about achieving that and getting to that goal. So, but Absolutely. We're all in, a continuous.
Smart advice.
Growing.
Smart advice.
Right.
So thank you again. We have had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Antiqua Smart. Her full bio and her contact information on social media will be on the website. So please make sure you follow. And I look forward to bringing you more incredible guests like Dr. Smart. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you. Have a good one. You've been listening to the RN Mentor with your host, Ali Tayeb. Please don't forget to visit www.alirtayeb.com That's www.alirtayeb.com for podcast notes and resources, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, I wish you fair winds and following seas.